He thought it was just another day at work, sweeping floors no one noticed. But when a black belt martial artist decided to test him for fun, everything shifted. The crowd expected humiliation, a janitor embarrassed, a fighter glorified. But what unfolded wasn't a simple sparring match. It became a moment that silenced every voice in the room. Was this about strength or something far deeper? Stay with me, because this story isn't just about a fight. It's about dignity, respect, and a lesson no one saw coming. Marcus was the kind of man most people overlooked. By day, he worked as a janitor at the local community center. Quiet, steady, dependable. He swept the floors after kids' basketball games, scrubbed the lockers after late-night practices, and never once complained. To many, he was just the janitor, invisible in the background. But to those who really paid attention, Marcus carried himself with a quiet pride. He had endured more than his share of dismissive stares and whispered remarks, yet he never let it show. That evening, he was finishing his shift, pushing his mop across the polished gym floor, when a small group gathered. Among them was a black belt, a fighter renowned for his confidence and the admiration people held for his skill. At first, Marcus paid no attention. He had work to do. But whispers began. "Why don't you spar with him? Just for fun?" The suggestion wasn't innocent. It carried the weight of mockery, as if a man who scrubbed floors had no right to stand against someone trained and respected. The crowd chuckled, waiting to see a spectacle. Marcus didn't laugh. He paused, resting his mop, his eyes steady on the fighter. What no one realized in that moment was that this so-called friendly challenge would become a test, not just of strength, but of respect, dignity, and something much deeper. The gym fell silent as the suggestion spread like wildfire. "Come on, just for fun," someone urged, their laughter dripping with condescension. The black belt smirked, tying his belt tighter, eager for an easy show. To the crowd, this was entertainment, a janitor daring to stand against a trained fighter. To Marcus, it was something else entirely. He had spent years quietly enduring sneers, insults, and assumptions, and now he stood at the center of it all. The fighter circled him, light on his feet, clearly expecting Marcus to fold, to retreat, to laugh it off and walk away. But Marcus didn't move. His stillness unsettled the crowd. A few whispers turned into nervous chuckles, as though people weren't sure whether to mock him or brace for something unexpected. The first move came, fast, a sharp jab toward Marcus's chest. A playful strike meant to humiliate. Gasps rippled through the gym when Marcus sidestepped, calm and measured, his eyes never leaving his opponent. The black belt laughed it off, but beneath the grin was irritation. This wasn't how the show was supposed to go. Strike after strike came next, each faster than the last. And every time, Marcus slipped away, his mop-worn hands moving with a precision no one could explain. He wasn't fighting back, he was enduring, letting the black belt expose himself with every miss. Murmurs grew louder. Who was this janitor? The same man they overlooked, dismissed, and ridiculed. Suddenly, he was holding his ground against someone who lived for combat. The laughter faded into silence, replaced by a sense of unease. But the fighter wasn't done. His pride was on the line now. He pressed harder, his strikes heavier, his footwork sharper. The crowd leaned forward, anticipation thick in the air. Would Marcus finally falter? Would the janitor's composure shatter under pressure? Then it happened. One strike came too close, grazing Marcus's shoulder. Instead of stumbling, he moved with it, flowing as though he had trained for this moment his entire life. The black belt staggered, caught off balance, his overconfidence betrayed. A collective gasp echoed through the gym. Marcus hadn't thrown a single punch, yet he was in control. But this wasn't just about technique. Beneath the surface, it was about something deeper. The crowd's assumptions, their quiet racism, their belief that a man with a mop was worth less than a man with a black belt, were unraveling before their eyes. The black belt steadied himself, eyes narrowing, determination hardening. This wasn't a game anymore. No smiles, no laughter. He was ready to prove his dominance at any cost. And Marcus? He simply waited, steady and unshaken, as if daring the world to underestimate him one more time. The next exchange would decide everything. The fighter lunged with everything he had, his pride now on the line, his fists slicing through the air with brutal force. The crowd gasped, every movement sharp and vicious, no longer for fun, but fueled by humiliation and anger. Marcus didn't flinch. He absorbed the storm with quiet precision, slipping, pivoting, moving as though he'd been here before. But then, one strike connected. A solid blow to his ribs sent a sharp pain surging through his chest. The crowd erupted, cheers mixing with cruel laughter. For a split second, Marcus bent over, clutching his side. The fighter smirked, believing victory was his. To them, it looked like the janitor had finally broken, proof of what they wanted to believe all along. But as the noise swelled, Marcus slowly straightened, his gaze steady, unshaken. The room fell into an uneasy hush. Then it came. A single, fluid movement, years of hidden training condensed into one perfect counter. The black belt lunged again, but Marcus shifted, redirecting the force with effortless precision. In an instant, the fighter was on the floor, wind knocked out of him, staring up in disbelief. The gym froze. No one moved. No one spoke. The man they had mocked, the man they thought unworthy, had just dismantled everything they believed about strength, dignity, and worth. Marcus stood tall, his chest rising with steady breaths, his eyes scanning the silent crowd. He hadn't needed anger, hadn't needed violence, only composure, patience, and undeniable skill. And in that moment, it wasn't just the fighter who was defeated. It was every prejudice, every smirk, every whispered insult that had followed Marcus for years. The silence was deafening. And then, the question that lingered in every mind: who exactly was this man they had called just a janitor? The black belt eventually rose to his feet, his pride wounded more than his body. He offered no congratulations, no acknowledgement, just silence, heavy and uncomfortable. The crowd, once eager to laugh, now stood frozen, unsure of what to say. Marcus didn't gloat, didn't raise his arms in triumph. He simply picked up his mop, the same way he always had, and returned to work. But nothing in that gym would ever feel the same again. For Marcus, the moment wasn't about victory. It wasn't about proving he was stronger. It was about dignity. For years, he had carried the weight of being underestimated, dismissed, and treated as less. And in that single encounter, without arrogance or anger, he forced everyone to confront a truth they had ignored. Respect cannot be measured by status, skin color, or a title tied around your waist. The fight ended in silence, but the impact echoed far beyond those walls. people began to see Marcus differently, not as just a janitor, but as a man whose worth had never been defined by their assumptions. Yet for Marcus, the bigger victory was invisible. He had turned humiliation into revelation. And isn't that the deeper lesson? That behind every overlooked face, behind every job society dismisses, there is a story of resilience waiting to be seen? The question we're left with isn't whether Marcus could fight, it's why it took a fight for people to see his humanity. So ask yourself, how many Marcuses walk past us every day, unseen, unheard, underestimated? And how long will we keep missing them? Until it's too late.